Alright, in this first episode, I'm going to be breaking down the law of attraction as I've come to understand it in kind of a way that I've never really heard it described before. And I've been on a spiritual journey for a while. I thought I had a pretty good handle on it until this story that I'm about to share with you happened and opened me up to a much bigger interpretation of it than most people, I think, kind of deliver it as. So, a little bit of backstory that you need for it is one of the many hats that I wear is as a remodeling contractor. And I was remodeling a bathroom. Got to the point in the job where I was going to start tiling the shower in a few days and called up a buddy of mine that I normally borrow his tile saw. It's a special saw that we use to cut tile. He says he no longer has it, and so I can't borrow it. Alright, no big deal. I start to think about, what do I want to rent one? Do I go buy one? Called a few other people to see if they had one I could borrow. Nobody had one. And this was on a Wednesday. A few months ago, middle of the summer, June to be exact. And it wasn't that big a deal. If I have to rent one, I rent one. If I gotta go buy one, I buy one. But it was just something that came up, something that I needed. So moving forward, the next couple of days, Saturday I believe, my brother, his wife, and kids came over for dinner, which is rare in and of itself. We don't really see them very often, and the fact that we even had them over for dinner was kind of strange. But we had them over for dinner, everything was going great, kids were in the playroom playing, my wife and I, and my brother and his wife were in the living room. Brother sitting next to me, out of nowhere, completely, out of the blue, looks at me, says, "Do you need a tile saw?" Kind of put me back in my seat a little bit because he had no idea, and this is something I had been talking about and looking into the last 2 days, and he just came out of nowhere and asked me this. And apparently his neighbor had been bugging him for about 2 weeks about this tile saw that he had. He wanted to sell and wanted to ask me if I wanted it or I could use it because he knew that I did remodeling work. And this was just very, like, we've all had synchronicities in our life where we're like, oh wow, everything kind of lined up, universe is working for us. But this is so blatant and so obvious. It's almost like a slap in the face at the time. It was really, really kind of took me back. My wife as well, because she knew that I was looking for one, and we both kind of looked at each other and had that that sci-fi music started playing in the background. Long story short, I ended up buying it from him. The saw itself was perfect. It was the perfect size I needed. It was brand new, never used. I got it for a fraction of the price that it would have been new. So win, 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 win all across the board. But the synchronicity of this and this magnitude of this just kind of, it stuck with me for a couple of days. And I thought about it constantly. Like, how could it be that on Wednesday I realized that I needed this tile saw? And then a few days later, my brother tells me about his neighbor who's been bugging him about it for 2 weeks longer than I knew that I needed it. Just all of these coincidences, which, as a side note, the word coincidence comes from a mathematical term of coinciding angles. Two angles that meet are said to coincide perfectly. So I like to think of it like this, if you can kind of see over here a little bit. If there is, we'll use two angles being, two people's paths in life. So there's one person's path that's going this way, and another person's path is going that way. Those two people's paths intersect here, and something happens, and they call that a coincidence. And how ironic is it that we use the word coincidence to mean some random act when really it's derived from a word that means two paths intersecting perfectly. Side note. So I really thought about this for a couple days. Thought about it, didn't come up with anything, nothing profound. So I ended up just letting it go and moved on to thinking about other esoteric, philosophical, questions and problems and all that fun stuff. not too long after I let go of the need to know, I was laying in bed, putting my 3-year-old to sleep, and out of the blue, I received the information I'd been looking for. It was all contained, front to back, up, down, side to side, everything that encompasses the explanation I was looking for. Everything that encompassed what I was looking for in this situation um, was given to me by, whatever you want to call it. If it was given to me or if I just became, a match to it, but that's neither here nor there. What's really interesting is what I received and how I kind of perceived it and the implications of it, which we'll get to a little bit later. So I'm going to break this down as simply as I can, hopefully, with my drawing here, which took me longer than I care to admit because this is all written backwards for me so that it's right in the camera. Never done this before. I don't know how to make the camera record in reverse. Maybe the next video will be better. So I'm going to show on here, we're going to represent the Wednesday of the 4th week of June. Okay, Wednesday the 4th. That is when I decided I need a tile saw. Okay, and this is going to represent, I'm going to say Saturday that same week. Saturday that same week is when I had dinner with my brother, and he looks at me out of nowhere and says, "Do you need a tile saw?" And it was only a day or two after that that I actually physically bought the tile saw. Okay, so there's that. But the interesting thing is, if we're looking at this, his neighbor started bugging him about selling me this tile saw over 2 weeks ahead of time. So it was, I believe, about up here. There we go. So you can see the difference in the time frames here. This is what really threw me when this all happened, was I just couldn't really wrap my head around the idea that here I am at the end of the month, just now realizing that I need a tile saw, and this guy up here, 2 weeks before I know that I need it, is bugging my brother about it, so that at the absolutely perfect time, it comes into my possession and, get the job done, customer's happy, I'm happy, everybody wins, we move on with life. But all of this just didn't, something about it really, really bugged me. I couldn't figure it out. And what I was given was that there's lots of teachings about, how people always say that, time doesn't really exist, and that everything that's happening is happening now. And I've heard that numbers of times throughout my kind of journey throughout this, and that's fine. I guess I understood it on like an intellectual level as just, okay, like I'll take your word for it. But we don't really have any proof of that in our day-to-day existence. But the way that this was explained to me, or revealed to me, whatever you want to say, is that the law of attraction works outside of what we perceive as time and space. So at the same time that I'm here saying, "Hey, I need a tile saw," at that exact same moment, 2 weeks in what I would perceive as the past, the law of attraction was, tapping or connecting with this person to put him on a path that brought a tile saw into my experience right when I needed it, for happy days. So this is a small and kind of mundane example, which is perfect, I think, because it so many people can relate to something like this. It's not some deep esoteric, concept. And I'm sure everybody kind of has an experience like this some point throughout their life that they kind of, fits. What I really took away from this is the larger implications of a deeper understanding of how what we call, the law of attraction works, and with this outside of this constraint that we consider time. The best example I can kind of come up with is if we can retrain our subconscious mind to work from the paradigm that what I just kind of explained here is the normal, everyday workings of the universe, and that all aspects of time, past, present, and future, are happening at the same time and intertwined with each other on a constant second-by-second basis, constantly working off of each other and changing each other. The implications of that are astounding. If you can wrap your head around the idea that I can have a thought or a desire right now of anything, of a chicken sandwich, whatever it is, I don't care, that you want now, that time itself will change in order to bring that into your experience. And the higher up the vibrational chain you get here, the smaller that gap gets. And that's where, stories of past masters, of instant manifestations, how this can, and this is my personal experience, so I can say that this is proven to me, that this proves that that was not only possible, but it's the way that reality works. And if you accept that and you work with that paradigm that it doesn't matter what I want, and just because I can't figure out how it'll get here, that it can't manifest instantly, because your desire works with an energy that's outside of our lineal time and space. So just your mere asking for it has the ability to change past events to bring what you're now desiring into your experience as quickly as you'll allow it. For me, it was allowing it within days of my asking. And it was a tile saw, something I could have went out and bought. Something bigger, the same is true of a healing, spontaneous remissions and things like that. These things happen and we just chalk it up to miracles, where there's really a mechanical essence or side to this, that if we can understand it as best as possible, wherever we're at along our paths, and know that it's there, and know how to work. We can't not work with it, but we can work more efficiently with it, I think. That the implications in our day-to-day lives are astounding. Absolutely amazing. I try to implement these things on a daily basis in my life, and it's tough. It's tough to, even though I've lived this and I know it in my core to be true, it's still hard to, I still have 3 decades worth of life experience that kind of is to the contrary, that you don't have a thought and magic makes it appear. But that is the reality. But we have to make that a belief in our subconscious that's as rooted in our subconscious as that we're breathing. If we can believe that time and space change according to our wants and desires, then if we can believe that as strongly as we believe that we're breathing, as strongly as we can believe that there's a hand on the end of your arm, then it'll be done. So it is. And it's not a religious thing, it's not a spiritual thing, it's a quantum reality that we all have access to. And as soon as we do the work and put ourselves in that place, I hate to throw the word miracles around because it's kind of, overused and a little airy-fairy, but miracles are absolutely possible, and they will become an everyday occurrence to you in whatever magnitude you allow them. This is my first video. There are about 1 million more I can think of that hopefully I can break down some kind of spiritual, esoteric things that have happened in my life and break them down in a way that more people can kind of relate. I hope this was helpful. I'm looking for any feedback at all. Like I said, first video, good, bad, or indifferent. Let me know what you think. I appreciate your time.